today we're going to study calculus rules. So here's our first rule. Our first rule is when f has 3x, the derivative will always be 3. It's multiplying the same. So the number will always be the same here. The number doesn't change. The number just chills. Well, the x is the one that has to do all the differentiation. So this would be the power rule and the multiplication by constant rule. So basically for the power rule, to find the derivative, you sit here and you multiply this exponent to the constant here, this 3. So 3 times 2 is obviously 6. And every time you do that, afterwards, you have to take this constant and minus 1. So this actually becomes x to the first power. But that just looks the same. You don't have to write the 1 every time. So our next rule is the sum and difference rule. So if the function is adding or subtracting to another function or to another variable, that doesn't affect the differentiation at all. The differentiation also adds and subtracts. And here's some final notes. So here's our exponent rules. So whenever it says like 1 over x, that actually means that x has the exponent of negative 1 in this case. And if it's like x squared, then this would be negative 2. And that just means 1 over x squared. And here we have another rule. So this is basically what happens when the exponent is a fraction. That means it's actually getting exponented to a radicals, to a square root. So here we have x to the first power under a square root, not a cube root or a quadruple root. It's just a square root. So that means x has being multiplied to the 1/2 power. Here, if it was a square root but x is to the third power, it would be a 3/2 power. Okay, now let's go over our examples. So here we have 6x to the third power. So this 6 would multiply to this 3. That would make 18. And then this negative 9 would multiply to this first exponent. That would become minus 9. This would actually be the same thing, we remember, as x to the 1/2. And there's no clear constant here, so let's just assume it's 1. So it would be 1 times 1/2 multiplying here. So you can continue applying that here. So this 8 is the constant, and this is a cube root, so it's multiplying to the 1/3 power. This is actually, oopsies, I made a mistake. This is actually a negative 2 that's multiplying to the 1/4 power. So then, because of the power rule, you would have to subtract all of these exponents by 1. So since this is a 1/2 exponent, 1/2 minus 1 would become negative 1/2. 1/3 minus 1 would become negative 2 over 3. So remember that t under a fraction is the same thing as t to the negative 1 power. So that would make this 4, which is a constant, being multiplied to the exponent of t, which is negative 1. So it's 4 times negative 1. And whenever you have a constant that's with the little t, that would mean that this constant is not 6, but 1/6. So that would be 1/6 times t to the negative 3 power. Very confusing. Well, it's negative 1/6 because this is minus here. So here, this 8 is up here. So that means it's just regular 8, not 1/8. And that would multiply to negative 5.